everybody. Welcome back to Early Childhood Chats podcast. Andy Roszak here with you, and I'm very, very excited about today's guest. We have Dr. James Rodríguez coming to us today, Fathers and Families Coalition of America. Dr. Rodríguez has, gosh, he's done it all. You look at his bio and you just can't help but be impressed and somewhat humbled by all the wonderful things he's done. Starting off in the United States Army at the young age of 17. He's a soldier, he's a father, he's a social worker, he's definitely a leader, and one that's really dedicated his life to making sure children have a better place to live. Been awarded by numerous organizations, including President George H.W. Bush and President Barack Obama. And gosh, a professor at many, many different universities, a principal investigator for health initiatives funded by CDC, and all the great work he's done supporting families over the years. Dr. James, I could probably spend an hour just reading your bio and all the wonderful things that you've done. But let me first say thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for your service in the Army. And thank you so much for being here today. It's really a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you for having me come on, Andy. I'm looking forward to our conversation and see where we go over this time together.
Well, so if you don't mind, sir, why don't you tell us a little bit about Fathers and Family Coalition of America? I know that's one of your prides and passions. Tell us about what got you started, what the purpose is, and kind of what you're up to by way of background here.
Okay, well, first, I really want to say to the things that are most important, my children, a special person that I really love, and her children, and just the people who've supported me over life, in and out. Some came in for specific reasons. Some of them helped me start Fathers and Families Coalition of America because it was never me doing it. And I feel like it was always based upon purpose. Originally, I always give credit to Dr. Sherry P. Ulmer. She was the CEO of Pinal Gila Community Child Services. I think she may have been one of the first Head Start programs in Arizona to create one. And I definitely feel like she was one of the first, because of talking about equity, leaders that was a lady that was overseeing some initiatives statewide. When I left active duty military, I didn't know where I was going to go. I was a single father. So I had an opportunity to work for a Head Start program and never looked back. And I've been so grateful, different opportunities, doing stuff for Office of Head Start, looking at even what family development credential programming they should have, or being a reviewer for a Head Start. Sometimes going out on reviews and being part of reviews that would shut down programs, which kind of broke my heart. Being on board of directors, policy, but our organization actually in the center came out of a Head Start program in Central Arizona. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And the ultimate goal, when we first started it, was how come the family service workers don't have the level of opportunities of professional development and accreditation as the early childhood education staff? And I don't think it was intentional oversight. It was just questions I have, like, why? And why, if we all have to have the same mandatory pre-services, why aren't we just doing it all together at the state? Like, why? Why are 22 tribal nations not part of the regional or the delegate agencies or the migrant program? And just all these little questions in my mind were like, why? And she said to do something about it. And I created a training program, and the training program helped some people who never thought that they could go to college. And at that time, I only had my 4-year degree. I mean, I had no inspiration or aspiration to go get a master's or later on enter into a doctorate program at Arizona State University. But I just felt that there had to be something more for our staff. And if we do more for our staff, then we could do more for parents. And if parents have more, then they can do more for their children. It's kind of like that domino effect, but in a positive way. Instead of the dominoes falling down, we pick them up and stand them up and help them elevate. And I think that that's what started us off. And I I'm very, very grateful. We just ended our 25th International um, Families and Fathers Conference, but in Arizona, as a Head Start program and other ones, we operated for 10 years programming for young fathers that were on TANF or their child was on TANF or basic education and life skills. I didn't like the framing of it that the government used because they said it was for mothers that needed basic education. I've always felt like poverty doesn't define capacity. It's just that you just still got a lot of money in your pockets. So, but we've done a lot and I'm very grateful. And that's the reason why we started. It was really a question of why can't we have more professional development training for staff? And then also, why not go for some of these programmings that together, I feel like Head Start is so awesome, but it leaves a lot that it could go get. And in terms of other funding opportunities beyond the OHS funding from ACF, they could go get foundation and other piloting programs. When you do that, you expand out your capacity. You have one of the greatest things that a lot of programs don't have. You have space, wonderful staff, teams of volunteers because of parents and the passion. You can't buy passion, and community embeddedness. And when you build it out, then you can even do more, get more, even more funding. And one of the things that we've always been wanting is have more Head Start programs operate continuum fatherhood and maternal programming so that there could be more and more parent education. And that's the goal.
So, no big mystery. There's been a lot of mental health challenges lately, especially over the last couple of years. I know that you are always kind of looking at it through different lenses, and one of the lenses is the father engagement, the father involvement, having that father be an active role in an early child's life can dramatically increase mental health of not only that child, but probably the whole family unit, the father and everybody around him. What are you kind of seeing as we enter? I almost want to call it like a new era post-pandemic of, people trying to get back to normal. What are you seeing in terms of fatherhood engagement? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the barriers? What are some of the good, wins that are out there of positive stories that you've kind of seen and been able to make an impact on?
Well, positive. There's a philosophy. It's called Kinsigu, and it's a beautiful art form, Japanese art form, where you bring these broken pieces together and you fill it in and repair it using gold or silver. And it's finding strength in imperfection. But we've got so many, including myself. I've been broken, and I hope that I haven't breaking people that much. But I feel like we've got so many, especially this last with the COVID and prior to that, so many broken generations is starting to add up. And it's just my opinion in my personal life, observations, talking with people professionally. I think after a while, all those broken pieces, it's hard to put it back together again, even with the philosophy of Kinsigu. So we have all these intergenerational um, uh, problems that could become opportunities to fix. And I think one of the things that could fix it is our youth. And when people see that there's a problem, start to address it instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You won't repair it. You can't repair it. So one of the things that we've done is we created a training program. And I think I did it once for your association in Puerto Rico. And it was cool because it was supposed to have only 40 or 50 people in there, but people were sitting on the floor. And it was a session on men and mental health. And that should show the deep amount of desire to help people. And I did the same one for State of California Head Start Association, and it was packed. But here's the downside of it. The majority of attendees, maybe 80%, were not men. So the ones that need the message for healing weren't in there. So I feel like there's got to be a way that we can bring in more, and that could be the next opportunity. I've seen there was a father that went, and this is going to be a funny use of video or movies. I use the um, very short clip from the movie Lion King, where Mustafa has already passed away or been killed. And I use it in dynamics of family, betrayal, jealousy, envy, being lost. And then the pig and the whatever they are, is a foster family. And the foster family changing the dynamics for a young boy to grow up into a young man. But had he not had the foster family, he would have been lost and maybe even perished. But his destiny was always going to come back to who he was. And a lot of us have got to come back to whom we were created to be. We were created to have a purpose and destiny. And a lot of us have just left it. And so what ends up happening, we destroy other people, maybe unintentionally, or, and I hope not intentionally, but those opportunities for us to go back and look in the pool of water like Simba did, and he saw his father, but it really was him, but it was his father. And so if we can have fathers being that mirror, and we just ended Father's Day, but being that mirror, that reflection for youth, that how powerful for boys and girls. And I celebrated with two of my daughters. And I think, just my opinion, something that happened at the brunch, I was really floored because my daughter did what I used to do. And I just was like shocked. She said, "Everyone, let's hold hands." And she started to pray over our, and I'm like, wow, wow. See, so that mirroring, I think that was probably one of my greatest gifts I've ever had, to see my daughter as a woman, but she's not broken up like a lot of little girls become, and then they grow into womanhood broken, and men the same. So I want us to stop this intergenerational fragmentation, and I would like us to figure out how we can adopt the model of Kinsigu so that we can have that feeling, because there's 4 even mores that philosophy suggests. One is called, you're even more precious, you're even more beautiful, you're even more resilient, and you're even more present. And I think when we do that, we have better opportunities to help children and families.
So I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit, and I appreciate just all the stuff you're saying here. When you think about kind of some of the underlying causes, I guess, of a lack of engagement, or gosh, a lack of just kind of knowing who you're at, and all the things you just spoke about. Is it a lack of mentors? Is it a lack of role models? Is it social media? What do you kind of think? And I know you've been doing this for many years. Like, where do you kind of think we started maybe going off the path a bit, or what makes it different now in 2024 versus when you and I grew up back in, well, we won't say the years, but many years ago when you and I were kids? What's different, or what are some of the challenges you think that maybe are eroding some of this, this baseline that we used to have? Any ideas or thoughts on that?
Man, that's a deep question. I mean, I wish I had the answer to that. I mean, that really is deep when you think about it, because with technology, we've got a lot of great gifts that we didn't have.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we're missing being interconnected. I think that connection piece, it's hard. You can't have love through an IG post.
Yeah.
You can't have a hug through TikTok. You can't have a deep, powerful, passionate conversation from text messaging. So while it's got some great things, I feel like that's been detrimental. But I still feel like I will say this. I say more fathers, I believe, are involved in their lives of their children than I've ever seen in my life. And maybe because of job force or other things, that's happened. I think that men we're trying to catch up to women in the evolution process of being better nurturers, I suppose. Like, our nurturing capacities increased. I think a lot. The stereotype of boys don't cry, it's okay if a man cries. It's just an emotion. I think more acceptance has happened, yet there seems more division. So it's kind of a weird question. I think, and it's just my heart speaking, the one key thing that if we could focus on, and I know it's going to be a very simplistic word, is just love. And I don't understand why we walk in fear of giving our heart away and why we're in fear of not letting love be the last word. I don't understand why love can't be the thing that conquers it all. All those are cliches that are said, but they're the truth. And I think technology is taking away that interconnectedness. Like even you and I were doing this. You couldn't do this 20, 30 years ago. We couldn't see each other. Maybe we'd be on a phone call, but I wouldn't see you and you wouldn't see me. And, it's just the way it is. I will give you like a little brief little joke, a little sense of humor about technology or a story. Joanne Nelson Hooks was at National Head Start Association. She ran the Male Involvement Network. And when she first spoke with me on the phone, this is many, many years ago, she said to me, just because you couldn't see each other's face, I know you've got to be African American. And I said, okay. She goes, I know you Puerto Rican. I said, but the way you said Puerto Rican, it's kind of funny, but all right. And I know you got to be tall. And I said, yeah, I am. I said, I tell you what, I'm like the C's chocolate store. You'll find me in there. So when I landed in Washington at Reagan Airport, she's looking for me, and I come behind her and I said, how you doing, Joanne? You think she saw a ghost? You said I thought you was chocolate. And I said, C's candy store. There's all kinds. There's amaretto, there's caramel, and 5'10.5" for Puerto Rican is tall. So, but you see that humor, that humanity, that love, that we could take it. And how it set it up was we were on the phone for 2 hours just creating vision about our very first conference. But on a text message, you don't share that level of dynamic of being connected. And even on Zoom, it's good, but we got all these distractions around us. And it's easy. Like my cousins called me twice, text messages. So it's hard for me to not decline the call, but it happens, right? So I feel like if we could be interconnected more and love, and I also feel like there's another philosophy that I really hold on to. It's called Ikigai, Ikigai, and it means for that what you wake up for. And when a human being has something to wake up for, a purpose, even if it's for the day, but an overarching sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, I think the sense of family life is dwindling a lot. I think it's more of a sense of individualism and what do I need out of this versus what can we get this together. But in Ikigai, it's got 4 domains. One is, what am I passionate about? And if you're not passionate about your family, then it doesn't matter. You're just going to be an individualistic person forever. And the other one is, what's the world needs? There's got to be something. There's something about Andy. There's something about James. Something about every single person in this world that no one else has that unique talent. No one else was ever going to be ever created like them. No one. And we got all of our talents and our gifts from 7 generations before us. So what are we going to leave for the generations ahead of us? Which goes to vision. And the last thing is what do I want to leave this world for? So I hope that one of the things that I leave this world for is that when my children or the people whom I love, whether it's my son Antonio, it's Amber, Derek, Jasmine, Jerry, Destiny, Aaliyah, it doesn't matter whom it is, that when they wake up, they can say, hey, you know what? One of his deepest things for his Ikigai was us. He woke up so that he could be a better man, a better dad, and wanted us to have a better life. And that should be the goal. But because technology we wake up to TikTok, or we wake up to Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or something else that keeps us disconnected from each other. And I hope that somehow we can create or recreate a new form, a new balance, that we can be more connected. And I hope that Head Start in general, and then this is for the early childhood educators as well, because when you are creating individualized education plans for children, how are you going to be creating it with the future in mind, not just in the moment? Like, how are you creating it so that these children have the adaptability quotient? And how are you also infusing emotional intelligence training for these children with their parents, so that you could bridge all of that together so that these children are going to be successful? Because I hope and I pray for the generations behind us that they have a better life than what we've ever had, and that they are better human beings than we have been in this world. Because I could go on news right now and look at all the tragic stuff that's happening in this world. And so maybe that's the other thing is too, we start to accept each other more, accept where we're at, and then we can grow it out. That's a long story. You should not have asked me that question, brother.
No, it's all good. It's so insightful and deep. And, nothing breaks my heart more than seeing a family out at dinner and everybody's sitting there on their device and nobody's actually talking or engaging with each other or enjoying the moment. I mean, sadly, it's become too common of a sight. And I do worry. I mean, just recently, the Surgeon General of the United States kind of put out a call to action, a warning about social media and smartphones and really what it's doing to our children. So I totally appreciate what you're saying, and refocusing with that. It kind of goes back to the Army days, I would think. That what is the mission, right? Let's focus on the mission. Let's accomplish the mission. What am I here to do? Is something that I know we need to be happy in life, right?
I had this one, yeah, you're right. I had this one training that I did or for a season. I think I hung in on doing this for a little bit of time, so I didn't have high resolve. But when you go out on a date, whether it's a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, parent, child, everyone leave their phones in the car. You know where your car's at. Just be present.
Yeah,
And they say the humanity is growing six, instead of having five, we're growing a sixth one. That's our cell phone. And that's sad.
that is sad.
And so I thought about that. It's like he's true. It's true what he's saying. We're not communicating with each other the way we should.
Well, let me switch gears if you don't mind. I know you've done, gosh, a tremendous amount of work with a lot of our Native American tribes, and thank you for all the work. It's a great population, a unique population, one I've had the privilege to work with, I think 33 tribes in my personal experience. And every one has been so fulfilling and rewarding. And quite honestly, I've learned so darn much. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the unique situations that you encounter when you're working with a lot of the tribal partners that you work with?
Well, before we started, I shared with you two of my prized accolades, but I don't like to rest on the laurels of my past. That's just it. Um, One was from the Gila River community, and the other one's from the Pipash, another one from the Katek Nation. And I've been blessed because I've always felt like it was an honor whenever I was asked to go do a workshop or a ceremony or a circle, or being part of a ceremony for this young man. He had to dance 24 straight hours. And at the very end, and it's hard for me to explain this big circle. In the very end, there's segments of sage, and he cut them up and gave it to all of us that were there. And I still have it, and I can't believe I've held on to it for maybe 2 decades. Or Navajo Nation. I feel like it's two ways. That if we could increase reciprocity and acknowledge that our country, as beautiful as it is, was built off of the slaughtering of millions of indigenous people. Then it was increased by the enslavement of millions of people. And once you can do that part, then you can start to say, okay, look, I wasn't around 400 or 500 years ago, and my family, we migrated from Puerto Rico, but we're part of that same thing, indigenous and enslavement. But for us not to reach out to our brothers and sisters in the First Nation, I feel like is sad. It's like they're missing, and they're the original souls of this country. So whenever I get a chance to speak with them, I'm so honored, so honored. Melissa Harris, if this ever gets out there, she's the executive director of the Catawba Nation in Rock Hill, South Carolina. She has a South Carolinian accent, but she's a Native American. And I laugh because it doesn't sound like what your stereotype person. You're like, well, James. But she's also the president of the Tribal Head Start Association. And I think of her, and I've told her that she could be a greater voice for First Nation. She's educated. She's a lady. She's a leader. She's got all these strong dynamics, and she's very considerate. When we had our 25th International Conference, she said she needed to do a prayer for the land that we were on and educated everyone about the people that were there before us. When we hear that, it makes it easier. And I think working with tribal nations, so rewarding. Now, on the other end, us asking, we also need to be received as well as opportunities to help, not to take away. And I think that's what I meant about reciprocity. And it goes back to one of the earlier questions about communication and being more interconnected.
Yeah, well, I think you even saw in Puerto Rico, honoring the Taino Indians that were obviously there, way before us and a lot of the land that they had. So yeah, very, very important to remember where we're coming from, remember the sacrifices that were made, and make sure that we honor and respect all the traditions that are out there. So I know you've had the opportunity to be awarded by 2 United States presidents. I just want to pause on that and say, wow, that's really cool. What was that experience like? How did it serve to motivate you? How did it serve to kind of reaffirm, like, gosh, what I'm doing really does matter? And how do you kind of take, something like that, getting an award from President H.W. Bush and then President Obama, and kind of what is that like after? I would imagine it must be a rush, and it must kind of rejuvenate you to really refocus and double down on all the great stuff that you've been doing. But can you talk a little bit about that experience, what that was like for you?
Well, I really haven't thought about it until you mentioned it. So the first one, I was in the military and I was working with kids in gangs, and they were just a few years older than me. I went in the military when I was 17, but I wanted to do a volunteer program, and I didn't know I was a social worker at the time. My little girl, who's now a grown woman, she was getting interviewed for a position, and she's a clinical social worker. And the lady asked a similar question, like, why social work? And she said, I always remember my dad as a little girl, he would take these boys and girls out for pizza. And I would ask myself, what is my dad doing? Well, I was mentoring these kids. And so I had no idea that my commanders were putting me in for this award. None. I just did it because I don't know why I did it. I think I just did it because I really wanted to help out some kids that just reminded me of me when I was younger, and maybe they didn't have a dad, maybe they didn't have mom, maybe they didn't have a good environment. So I just felt like maybe bring them on the installation, and brought in some other members in the military, all kinds of backgrounds, and they would shadow us and they would get mentoring, and some of them went in the military and some of them retired from the military like I have. And I mean, that was an honor. It was a surprise. The other one, um, it was more of me wanting to give those opportunities for other people that I felt like didn't get recognition. So while I have that on my wall, and I have a lapel pin that I wear when I go to a conference, I don't think about President Obama, whom I really appreciated as our president, but I think more of the sacrifices of other people who may have been silent and did so much good work, and no one ever knows. No one will ever know. And I think that one is just different for me because I don't feel like it was for me. I feel like it was for a plethora of other people. And our organization is a presidential service volunteer agency, and I was able to coordinate um, many acknowledgments after that one I got. I was able to bridge it for a lot of people who've been doing volunteer work so that they can receive similar or even better recognition. So to me, very different. One a younger person, one in his 40s. So I mean, it's just different.
Well, it's certainly a rewarding experience, and congratulations again. That's a major achievement, and very proud of all the work you've been able to accomplish. That's fantastic. Thinking about kind of our future, I always like to put a little question out there for the young folks out there who may be thinking about getting into social work. And I'm kind of wondering, what advice would you have for those thinking about, gosh, maybe I can make social work my career? Um, what are some advice you may have? You've seen a lot of stuff, obviously. Good choice, bad choice. Would you do it again if you had to, or what would you recommend to the folks coming up behind us here?
Well, see yourself as a professional. Um, Hopefully you don't view yourself as a caseworker, which is nothing wrong with that, but see yourself as a professional. If you get a master's in social work, you actually have a terminal degree, which means you're considered an expert. And that means continuously improve yourself. Don't get stuck on, well, I've achieved it, so I don't need to learn anymore. Consider yourself always a student so you could be a better teacher, so you can learn, then you can teach and give it away. And you never know where you end up. I taught at University of Southern California. One of my students called me up, and she's the director for the state of Maryland's public health, mental health programs now. And you never know where you're going to end up. I have another colleague of mine who said, I need you to help me write, my Professor Rodríguez, I need you to help me write because I'm putting in for tenureship at a university. You never know the kind of impact that you're going to have. So it doesn't matter what level that you want to come in at. If you want to do it, you can go into research, you can go into direct practice. I personally wish I had kept my clinical license going. I let it go because I felt like I'd had enough. I got burnt out. But whatever your passion is, if you feel that you want to become a social worker, it's really a great, noble, and honorable profession because you as a professional are actually giving a piece of yourself away to help others. But you're going to get replenished. And that's the blessing. So I feel that when we do that as social workers and we see problems, we can help navigate. Doesn't mean we can fix them. That's the other thing too, as a social worker. You can't fix anything or anyone, but you can help navigate. You can help show them the opportunities for them to get healing. And I think it's just an honorable profession. And I think the same with, I think whatever you do, if you do it and you know you're doing it to strive for excellence, not perfection, but for excellence, it doesn't matter. And as long as you have passion about it, that's what counts. Passion and striving for excellence, knowing that nothing and no one is perfect, and accepting the strength of our imperfection, and you'll be fine.
Well, and it's certainly one of those fields where compassion fatigue and burnout and all of that is certainly high and certainly a cause for concern. So I think, as we've talked about many times, and even back at your days as a medic, kind of cool. We got two medics on the podcast today. But putting your own air mask on first, making sure that you're doing okay and doing some of that self-care.
Right.
Really, if you want to stay in any field for a long period of time, that longevity is essential for on that self-help and self-care.
Right, that's true. That's true. And you never know
So,
you back into action anyway. So
well, that's true. Once a social worker, once a medic, always, I suppose, right? What do you think about, if programs want to engage with Fathers and Family Coalition of America? What's the best way to do that? I know you've got a conference coming up that's been very successful over the years. I know you've got a website, you've got a lot of great training. You speak, nationally and internationally. What's the best way to kind of get in touch with you? What are some things that programs may come to you and say, "Hey, James, I need some help with A, B, and C, and how can we partner up here?"
Well, awesome. Thank you. So on our website, fathersandfamiliescoalition.org, there's different menus. One is our programming. We do a great programming that a lot of Head Start programs have enjoyed. Our advanced practitioner credential course. I'm actually in a cohort right now with about 20 people, maybe 30. And it's an advanced training program for 17 hours. It's got an accreditation level to it. There's one on DISC, which is a personality profile training, which is an exceptional class. There's a leadership one that we do the Leadership Institute, but we're usually contracted, like Kings County or in Central California or in state of Missouri, they contract us out and we do leadership development. Or maybe there's been some Head Start programs that have contracted us to come out and do their pre-conference, or what's it called, pre-service. Had to put my head back on. But in general, that's one way. Our international conference, which will be held April 28th through the 10th in 2025, that's going to be our 26th. And the conference name is called Building Bridges. I love that conference because we make sure we have a track on parent engagement in the classroom, early childhood development and fatherhood, mental health and wellness, and other series, but those are at least 4 of the ones that we know. We make sure that we have quality, high-level trainers, and we have open call for workshop proposals for right now. So maybe someone wants to hear it. I would jump on board right now and put in a submission of it. The other thing is we got some great volunteers, and maybe that's something that an individual wants to do. You don't have to be in Los Angeles because we have affiliates throughout the U.S. and internationally, and you can be part of something that's special. We have a chat group. It's called Living the Dream, and it's a chat group of all of some of our volunteers. And one of the people on there, Eddie Baker, he said, it's not coming to a conference or an organization. It's coming back to your family reunion every year. It's family. And that's the truth. When people have passed away, we've been there. When people have celebrated newborns, we've been there. When people have celebrated the coming of 2 families in a union, we've been there. When people have struggled and said, how can I build up my programming? There's so much support and love that comes out of this small nonprofit that I don't even know how it still exists, because when you look at the financial ledger, you're like, well, how's it still hanging in and still making an impact? But it comes back to one of the words I said earlier, passion. And if you have passion, you want to make a difference in the lives of children so they have a better life. And we can do that through working with children and families. Come on, join us.
Well, it certainly sounds like a robust conference, a lot of great learning opportunities, and of course, other ways to network with you around the country in the interim. So, website we'll post in the show notes, of course, as well. Hopefully, we'll get to see Dr. James down in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I know you've got maybe a couple medical things coming up, but we pray that you're going to be there. Would love to see you in person for the Region 2 Head Start Conference in October in the Virgin Islands. What else would you like to tell folks? Any parting words of wisdom, thoughts, topics, advice, things that you want to leave folks with on a positive note?
Well, there's one more philosophy that I want to share, and it's called Ishigo Ishie. Ishigo Ishie is celebrate each moment of life. Like this beautiful, beautiful person, Jerry, she and I were driving, and she asked me, what are you doing? And I just pulled over the side of the road, and there's a song called Closer by the Chainsmokers. And I said, come on, let's get out and dance in the middle of the field, in the middle of Central California. Sometimes just pull over, just get out and dance. This world is, and this life is so stressful. It's so up and down, but sometimes create a moment that you'll never get back, no matter whatever happens to that situation, that job, that personal relationship, that moment. It's all going to be gone anyway. So sometimes just get out and dance and be goofy, because if not, then you're just going to walk around and worry about what I've got to wear for tomorrow for work. I got to go see Andy. I can't believe I got to go see Andy at the job. No, sometimes just get out and sing a song off key, don't know the lyrics, the tune, you mess it all up, but so what? And then when you go back, like with Jerry and I, she just thought I was probably one of the most goofiest persons at the time, but people don't see that part of me. They only see the more cerebral or serious part of me, right? Or they see a title, they see Dr. James C. Rodríguez, MSW. That's something I've done. That's not who I am. And so don't get caught up on what you do in life. Try to be who you are the best, and know that you're not perfect. And that whenever you need to make amends, make the amends. And whenever you need to forgive someone, forgive them. So I have a saying in one of the classes, and it's, you start off with I declare, and you write down I declare in a column, and then 5 empty spaces. And one of them is I declare forgiveness, I declare joy. But I ask everyone to write down what you declare, not a New Year's resolution, something you resolve to do, because we're all going to hit. But I declare Ishigo Ishie, and at least have some fun, have some joy in life. And that's one thing that I would want to leave people with and take it away.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end on that. My
Song
goodness.
for you, but if I sing the song, no one will ever come back to your podcast ever again. They'll be like,
It may be
and
copyright infringement. I don't know.
no, because I don't know the lyrics or the tune. It'll be
I
like,
sing like that, and my friends say you should sing solo. I said solo, and they go, yeah, solo. We can't hear you. Well, Dr. James, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's a fascinating story that you have, an amazing impact that you're making every single day. I hope that you continue to strive and thrive, and don't burn out on us. We need you out there, and certainly be looking for you hopefully to come to the Virgin Islands, and certainly at your conference coming up next year. Nothing but the best, nothing but success for you, sir. Thank you so much. I'll leave all of his contact information in the show notes, and we really appreciate everybody taking time listening to the podcast. You can find us over on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you being here, and of course, all that you do every single day. So stay tuned. We got a lot more guests coming up, and I appreciate everybody. Have a great day. It's Andy saying I'll see you very soon.